Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, and streaming. That's right, kids. Today we're talking about streaming. I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. Hey, Roxy.
Hey, DJ.
And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Lon Harris. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. You know what? They already heard me. I already interrupted. So
I might have cut it out.
Once the power of the intro.
You know, someday I'll just have the guests do that. I'll be like, hey, you're new here. You do that. You could jump in. What's our show?
Yeah.
That's funny. That would be amazing to have the guests do the intros. No idea what they're doing.
Yeah, it's you. You're the guest. Listen, we like to defer to the guest. You intro the show. Lon, for the kids that may not be familiar, who are you? Where can they find you?
Who am I? It's a great. it's a big question.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have an hour. I'm Lon. I'm a freelance writer. I write about a lot of pop culture and tech stuff. Honest Trailers is one of the things I work on regularly. I write a newsletter about streaming TV called Inside Streaming. You can find that at inside.com/streaming. Lots of others. I write for some more news. I write for stuff for Ranker sometimes. Rotten Tomatoes. You've seen my stuff over there. All sorts of places.
So I tend to go to certain guests are my go-tos. If we're like talking about a certain topic, I'm like there's always a person that like pops in my brain. Like we got to reach out to them first. You know, I got my Star Wars people. I got, the superhero stuff. And so if you've been listening to the show for a while, like Lon's here, we're probably going to be talking about streaming. That's what Lon's one of my go-to guys when we talk about streaming. And it's perfect because Roxy is TV pro. And so I think we've got our bases covered to talk about the nature of streaming, especially coming out of the strikes. Actually, I think, Lon, last time we had you on was like at the beginning of one of them strikes last year.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
A lot of talking about the nature of streaming and, certain streaming services are adding ads, which might be more egregious if your streaming service is owned by one of the richest men on the planet. So I thought it was a good time to take a second to step back and look at the nature of streaming. Before we get into that, a little business up top. As always, if you want to watch exclusive content of this show, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. We have what we're into. We have Spider-Versity. A bunch of other cool stuff. If you listen on iTunes, please leave us a 5-star review. Please and thank you. Love it very much. If you're listening on Spotify, every week we ask a question. One of our previous questions was, what is your favorite book-to-screen adaptation? This was off of our Dune episode. Sure. Luke DeMann says, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, for sure. Deviant says, Dune Part 1 and 2, for sure. I wouldn't be excited for Messiah. Not much happens, which is why it's added to Children of Dune in the sci-fi miniseries. Lon, you're our guest. Do you have a favorite book-to-screen adaptation?
I mean, it's a great question because I mean, part of me is like Lord of the Rings. I mean, obviously, I love those movies, but they're also such great books. It feels like it's just we love those movies because they did such a good job. But yeah. I mean, to me, some of the best adaptations are like when the book itself is like kind of forgettable, and then the movie just like adds all of these new elements and dimensions. So I feel like stuff like Die Hard. Or Jaws, where they're or even The Godfather, where they're adapting kind of like airport books or forgettable kind of disposable books, but then they turn it into like this all-time masterpiece.
100%.
So I would say those. The other one I would mention, just because Netflix has a new version that just came out today. You ever seen that 50s movie, The Wages of Fear? That's based on a book.
Wait, Netflix is doing a new Wages of Fear movie?
Yeah, it came out today. It's French, a French director. The guy did The Crew. Did you ever see The Crew, which is really good? This crime movie from a few years ago.
Yeah.
That guy made it's a book, so he made a new adaptation of the book, The Wages of Fear. Yeah, it's about like the guys driving nitroglycerin across the desert.
Great. I want to check it out.
The new one.
Yeah.
But the classic, the 50s one, is one of the great sort of thrillers maybe ever made.
I love this is perfect for our streaming conversation with like, yeah, Netflix just dropped a new movie. You haven't heard of it though. You haven't seen a single thing about it.
No, this one's French too. So I mean, I bet if you were in France, you probably would have heard about this one.
Why are you in France, DJ?
Why am I not in France?
Julian Leclerc, the director, I think he's more notable in France than the States.
Roxy, do you have a favorite book-to-screen adaptation?
We talked about it a little bit last time, but it's got to be either Wizard of Oz or The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm. Two good choices. I think for me,
Wizard of Oz, yeah, it's great.
Wizard of Oz is iconic.
Maybe the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's better than Wizard of Oz? I went
Very
and
few.
saw an exhibit on them at the Academy Museum when it came because
Yeah.
they did like one of the whole floors was Wizard of Oz, and I just love that movie.
Yeah.
And no matter how many stories I hear about it, there's always 1,000 more about like the making of and just it's. I think it's just one of the greatest of things that ever happened to the planet. Other than
there's a
behind the
few-
scenes, which is brutal.
Yeah.
So
There's occasionally you'll see like one of those like a 30s or 40s Technicolor movie, and somehow it looks better than new. Like we in some ways we never topped that. Like I recently watched that Powell and Pressburger, A Matter of Life and Death on Criterion, which is from like 47 or something.
Yeah.
And the Technicolor sequences of that, they look better than Godzilla X Kong.
Yeah.
It's like they look better than new stuff. We never actually topped that classic Technicolor process. And Wizard of Oz is the same way. When it first turns from black and white to color, it's like the most eye-popping cinematic spectacle of all time. Like we never actually topped it.
Well, and we keep tracing that dragon. I think one of the examples I think of that's relatively recently was the new Tron movie where it's in 3D, but the stuff before we enter Tron, they emphasize the 3D less, and then when you enter Tron, it's like they really like lean into 3D. And the problem is like I don't know once that seal is broken, I don't know if there's any equivalent or any way to go back to creating what that must have felt like back when that movie first premiered.
Right.
yeah.
Probably not.
I think for me, a couple of my go-tos, and I think it might just be like movies I like that happen to be based on books. Like from what I understand, Prestige is a pretty good adaptation. To your point, Lon, where it took like the kernel of the idea and then did something new with it.
I honestly don't even know if I knew that was an adaptation.
Yeah, the Prestige is based off a book, and then one of
he's Sir Christopher today. They did you see that? He just got
didn't.
knighted.
Good for him.
Yeah, and his wife. So it's Lady Emma Thomas and Sir Christopher.
What is the criteria for that?
To being served?
Yeah,
I think the king or whoever works for the king and makes these decisions just decides like, it's how like we do the Kennedy Center honors in this country or the presidential whatever. Like the president can give you a medal.
They're just a fan.
It's the same way. They just who are the most popular, biggest old celebrities that we need to like honor for their lifetime achievement.
Nothing to do with like humanitarian, like.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think it's just like this person's now so prominent and beloved and popular. We want to like leech off of their popularity.
Yeah, the British royals don't care about humanitarian stuff. They're like, no.
Every old British rock star, it's like Sir Rod Stewart, Sir Elton John, like all those guys get served if they're big enough and pop. Sir Brian May, I think at this point. So like,
we're not talking about it on this show today, but DJ, in the future, I have to even know if you even are kept up with what was going on with the Kate Middleton story before she came out and said what was actually happening.
Vaguely.
Oh.
Yeah, the kind of the highlights. But I will also say book to screen adaptation, one of my go-tos that I like to bring up is Where the Wild Things Are, because that is less of an adaptation of the book directly because the book's so slight and more of adaptation of the way it made the writer and director you know what I mean, the way it impacted him growing up. And I always thought that's cool. That's a cool way to adapt something.
Maltese Falcon also, I forgot to mention, also based on a book. One of the greatest.
Iconic. So today we are talking about streaming and the impact of streaming and how it might have affected different aspects of our culture. Before we get into that, with Lon here and Roxy together, let's talk about some of the stuff we're watching. If you guys have been listening to what we're into, Roxy last week a couple weeks ago brought up 3 Body Problem, which I did mean to watch some of, but that I have not had a chance to. But Lon's caught up. Roxy, has your feelings on 3 Body Problem changed? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just to catch you up, Lon. I really struggled getting into 3 Body Problem, and I was like ready for this. For the people who don't know, DJ talked about this a little bit at the top. Lon and I are literally the 2 people I know that watch the most television of anybody I know.
Yeah.
He's the only person I know who rivals me with how much we actually stream in terms of TV shows. And I don't want to hear all the people who stream movies. that is a very easy thing to do. All you have to do is commit to 2 hours of something.
Yeah.
Lon and I be out here committing to 15 hours of something at a time.
Mhm.
It is a whole different beast. But okay, so this was on my most anticipated list of the year, as I'm sure it was on yours, because of Benioff and Weiss, because of the Netflix, because of how much money they were putting into it, because of the adaptation part of it, because of all of the reasons. It was like, okay, this is a don't miss this show of the year. It's on my calendar. I know when it's coming out. I'm ready to watch it. I waited until the night that it dropped. I put on episode 1 and I was like, and this is before there's any conversation about it. And I'm like, uh-oh, I don't know that this is for me. Let's just keep on trying. Went through episode 2 and was like, uh-oh, I don't know that I'm gonna understand what's happening on this show. Like I might not have the mental capacity to actually grasp this show. Put on episode 3 and was like, okay, I now feel I know who is who and where we are. So at least I've got the basics, but am I enjoying this? And then episode 4 really took off for me. And then 4 and 5 and now 6, I've been pretty excited about. But when DJ talked to me last, I had seen the first 3 and was like, it's not a bad show. I just actually don't know that I get it. And now I'm more keen on it, but still doesn't hold a candle to Shogun for me as best show of the year. So where are you at, Lon, with this?
I mean, I feel like you're fairly spot on. It takes a long time to get it. Here's my thing with it. It opens, the first few episodes makes you think exactly what Roxy was saying, that it's going to be this very heady, very complex, hard sci-fi, sort of obscure, very thoughtful. And I was sticking with it, but I was like, yeah, I was really struggling to get a handle on what is this show going to be? What are we sort of going for here? Once you get the reveal and you figure out what's going on and what kind of show it is, it's kind of silly. And I haven't read the book. I'm sure the book is great. This isn't a knock on the story itself. Stories are allowed to be silly, but I feel like the tone that they're making the show with doesn't really match what kind of show it is. And it should be more fun. I don't want to spoil stuff, but it's basically like an alien invasion sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really that much more deep than that. There's a lot of like math and physics around the fringes, but the core of the show is like very much in the line of like, it's a War of the Worlds riff sci-fi thriller thing. And I really wish I enjoyed it more rather than feeling like I was struggling to keep up, and then I figure out what it is, and it's like, oh, it's that. Oh, okay. And now I get what it is, but it's like, I don't know. The whole thing I feel is a little underwhelming. It reminds me of Lost a little, but less compelling and more self-serious. And it's like, I don't know if that's a great combo.
Well, time for me to interject, having watched the first 10 minutes of the first episode or so. The opening sequence set in revolutionary China was very intense. I'll just say that. We haven't seen a lot of like the Cultural Revolution, like that whole period of Chinese history. You don't really see it depicted in the West a lot. It's kind of like a little bit of a third rail, I guess, or whatever. Yeah, and
also, the Chinese are not happy that we did that.
Of course not. And seeing that reminded me a little bit of certain sequences in Napoleon during the French Revolution, where it's like, where they're saying stuff like, I think conceptually I might agree with you, but this whole part where we're the murdering people part, I might have some notes.
But tend to happen.
But it might just be
history.
Yeah, I'm not super.
Once the revolution kicks off, you do start to see.
It's almost like, hey, maybe the people in charge should fix some of these things before we start dragging people in the streets. Maybe just throwing that out there. But anyway, so I got to the point where Isa Gonzalez, whatever her character is, starts seeing numbers in the sky, which to Lon's point seemed a little silly to me. But I will say, and the only reason I bring this up because again, I only seen the first 10 minutes. I will say, having talked to Roxy and started watching that, I was like, ooh, this could be tricky. Because it's very hard to write very smart people. It is easy if you're writing characters that are supposed to be smarter than you. It's very easy for that to not work. And so I was like, "Oh, you're already this." Again, I haven't even finished a full episode, but I could see where this could be a problem. This could be a challenge. from writing wise.
I'm trying to remember what it was called. Another Earth, or do you remember this, Roxy? It was there was a very silly 2-season Netflix sci-fi show that starred Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, Katie Sackhoff.
Yeah.
I believe it was called Another Earth or Another World or something like that. It was on Netflix. And it's like a Star Trek riff, it's in the future and aliens make contact with Earth and we send a starship of humans out to go meet the aliens and see what they're all about. Katie Sackhoff is the sort of captain.
Yeah.
But it was super dumb, but it knew it was super dumb and kind of steered into
Another Life.
Another Life, thank you.
Yeah,
and it kind of steered into that campy throwback sci-fi Farscape Babylon 5 vibe.
Yeah.
And I sort of enjoyed it because it knew what it was, even though it wasn't like smart. And I kind of wish Three Body Problem knew it's a better show than Another Life, but I wish it had a better sense of what it was and that it wasn't like, this is not a new Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
This is a little bit goofy, like a funny alien sci-fi riff. It reminds me of V sort of too, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But V also was like fun and goofy.
We're having fun over
lizard
here.
People.
Yeah. Well, what were you gonna say, Roxy?
It was about 3 days after, and I love V, by the way. It was about 3 days.
right.
I'm with you. 3 days after this show came out, when I'm struggling to watch it, I remember looking at, I think it was Hollywood Reporter, and it was like, creators say that season 2 of Three Body Problem will be better, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
Why didn't you do? I mean, that's the other thing. I'll keep it spoiler free, but it's another one of those shows where they're not thinking in terms of seasons. They're thinking in terms of like long term. So season 1, it doesn't have that satisfying, we just wrapped up the TV season. It's purely like, well, there's lots more coming. And it's like, I want to feel like I finished something.
Yeah.
So, not to give I don't think this is a massive spoiler, and I'll keep it kind of vague, but I think that one of the things that I'm struggling with, and I wonder, Lon, how you have been feeling about this, or if, I don't know, the next couple of episodes helps this. They set up the premise being that we are going to be, there's going to be hundreds of year period that takes place, is challenging for me, because I'm like, the stakes feel so low here right now for any of our characters. Like, I'm not saying that there's not current immediate problems, but I don't really care that hundreds of years of issues are going to be taking place. Like, I care about our characters right now, and like, what's their tomorrow look like, and what's their lives look like, and it just that while the stakes should be so unbelievably high in this show, because of that aspect, I'm like, y'all are chilling.
Yeah, they don't figure that out in the future. In fact, people keep bringing it up, which I feel like cuts against their like, characters keep raising this issue. They're like, why do you care so much? Our great grandkids are going to have to worry about this. Like, I don't worry about them the rest of the time. Why am I worried about that? Like, stop saying that. If you want me to care about what's happening in your show, stop pointing out that it won't matter for any of these people. They're doing a thing. I don't know if you watch Foundation on Apple TV.
No, but this is something I've heard that I should. And instead of starting Foundation, I started Constellation, and that was a bad choice by me.
I haven't watched Constellation.
Yeah, I've heard not good things about Constellation.
I'm so
Roxy.
happy for you both.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
But Foundation is worth watching. But they're doing an interesting thing, which is every season jumps hundreds of years into the future, and they just have a few main characters who, for various different reasons, survive. So your core cast continues throughout every season, but everything else is totally different. They like wake up and it's like 300 years later and every scenario has changed. And like, Foundation figured out a really clever way to do that, but still keep you invested in the personal stories of the characters. And I feel like maybe Three Body Problem has a plan for that we just don't know yet. but they haven't revealed what it is yet, which really does make you feel like, well, but by the time this resolves itself, literally all of these people will be long dead and it kind of won't matter to them.
Right. And like it matters for our planet, of course, right? Like this isn't me saying we shouldn't care about global boiling because it won't affect us. Like it just doesn't make for the most enticing TV show.
Yeah.
Right. That's not how we enjoy drama.
Right,
that
exactly.
Might be like true. Yeah.
You would have to, as a society, make changes and plans. But watching it, I'm like, but these are the people you've introduced me to.
Mm-hmm.
These are the people.
Yeah, that's not going to impact Benedict Wong. He's going to die in a decade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, unless they, it would be interesting if they introduced a generation that is immediately dealing with it, so that raises the stakes for what the people in the past are doing, because we know the people that are being impacted. Something Roxy and I discussed talking about this was Silo, and listening to you guys talk about it, makes me appreciate what Silo was able to accomplish more, because for one, even though it was built around a central mystery, I knew what was happening in the show. Like I knew the premise of the show. And then it ended on, Lon, did you watch Silo?
Yeah.
Okay. And it ended in a way.
Lon, did you watch Silo?
I don't know. I didn't want to assume.
I didn't watch Constellation. It's possible.
Very different.
But it ended on a way that resolved the central mystery it set up.
Ferguson,
it was great. And the central mystery it set up in the first episode, it resolves while leaving the door open for other seasons. But if that was it, if all I got was that season of Silo, I would feel satisfied. I'd be like, got it.
You got a story. It was at heart, what I liked so much about Silo is at heart it was like a detective noir. It just happened. It was a detective noir in a sci-fi outfit.
Yeah.
But it was really like at core it was, she was a detective. She had this weird mystery and corruption and conspiracy to untangle, and she did. So we're left with an opening for more storytelling.
Yeah.
But we answered the question that we set up, and that's what the stuff like Three Body Problem doesn't really do as well. It's all about leading into season 2 and nothing about resolving. And you would think in the streaming era, when shows get canceled all the time after one season, you would stop doing that because it's unsatisfying.
Yeah. Well, as Roxy mentioned, one thing we are loving over here, and I did want to touch on it real quick before we got to our main discussion, is Shogun.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're on the same page with us, Lon, about Shogun, that it is very good.
My thing is like, between this and Tokyo Vice, like what a time to be a fan of Japanese genres beyond anime. I feel like for a long time now, American anime fans have been eating well. There's been so much anime stuff happening in the culture. But what of the samurai and Yakuza fans? We've been sort of left out in the cold. But now finally, they figured out that you can make American takes on these genres just by putting one white guy in Japan. Well, I love that. I love the simplicity of it. Like, if we send one white guy to Japan and make him a reporter, we could do a Yakuza show. If we send one white guy to feudal Japan and make him a warrior, we could make a samurai show. And it works so well. It's brilliant.
I think both shows, it is interesting watching both those shows simultaneously, because they do, in a weird way, feel like they're in conversation with each other. At least in my heart and head, they are. But something they do well, I would argue Shogun, I think, does that a little bit better than Tokyo Vice does, is that, the in for the American audiences is we've got this one white character, but they do a good job of of avoiding a lot of the white savior tropes. It's like, this guy's here, but it's like all these other people around them have interiority and their own goals. And especially in Shogun, where it really, the pirate character, Blackthorn, is our into the world, but he is in a lot of ways like a pawn to these other people. It's not like him making all the moves and doing all the things. It's all these other characters' motivations are just as important. Yeah,
I mean, it's really Toranaga's the most active character. Like, he's the one making the schemes and decisions, and Blackthorn is being moved around the board by him, which is it's definitely a different take than the other miniseries where it was all sort of situated on Blackthorn.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, but I have seen the other miniseries.
Yeah.
From what you have heard, Lon, there's just zero shot we're getting a season 2 of this.
I wouldn't say zero. I feel like there have been the few interviews I've read about it have been like they're leaving a window open. Like they weren't planning on it.
Yeah.
because it's a book and it was always thought of as sort of a limited series, but it's been a breakout hit. It's doing better than stuff on Netflix for Hulu, which is a relative rarity.
Yeah.
How do we know that? How do we know any numbers at all about anything? I still don't understand.
We don't have numbers. We don't have like Nielsen data. We only have, there's all those like sites like Just Watch and Luminate and Samba TV, and they're all using different specious sketchy metrics.
Yeah.
So I would not like go swear on a Bible that this information is accurate. Don't get me wrong. We just have, it's like what's in the air. We get like a sense of it. But I will say, once the Nielsen numbers do come out, usually the guesses are pretty right on. It's rare that the Nielsen numbers will come out and directly contradict a previous story that came out. So if you see those reports of like early numbers, like the new one that they're talking about now is that one, Apples Never Fall. That Annette Bening one. So we don't have numbers yet because it was just like 2 weeks ago, I think. But the early buzz is that it's a considerable hit for Peacock. Like it's doing better than the average Peacock show, which is not good. So, I mean, we'll see if that bears out once we get the official data, but I suspect that they're probably right. And like more people are watching Apples Never Fall than most Peacock tape than, whatever else was recently on Peacock. I couldn't even tell you.
Roxy, lover of love, shipper of ships. How did you feel about this week's episode of Shogun?
Man. I'm so invested in this show. I'm so invested in all the characters, but you nailed it, DJ, as lover of love, shipper of ships. You guys know the main reason I'm watching this show. You already know. I mean, and it's like, I just can't live any longer without these two embracing each other. Her decision to set when they are in is the proper term brothel?
I think would be the Western term. I can't remember what it's called in the show, but in Western terms, we'd call it a brothel.
When they're in the brothel, and she is, spoilers, I guess, and the what did they call her? She's a
concubine.
Concubine,
consort.
So speaking through our girl, like the way that it's shot, and she's speaking, and Anjan's over here. It's like I'm in my room by myself screaming, like, oh my God. And like, the concubine's like, do you want to join us? And she's like, I can't. And I was just like, because that would be horrible for her. Like, this is just, and then with the husband being there, the whole thing, and they're talking, and just the whole thing. I am so invested in them and this relationship. This is why I'm not okay with it ending so soon, because I don't feel like we have enough time to explore the love. This is the love. Like,
I mean, I feel like this is partly like because it's an old book, and that's what we used to be open to, that kind of storytelling in the 50s, the sweeping romantic melodrama. And today everybody's so cynical. And everybody like ooh, gross, and like there's like love stories are inherently problematic now or whatever. And so we're just not writing those kinds of pieces anymore. It's always about like a group of three friends, and everything's got to be sort of like so platonic and so cool and distant. And even the like we pointed out in the Honest Trailer, like even romances like Past Lives don't have any actual romance in them. They're all, also, and so like, we have to go back to 50s books to get like this vibe of like swooning, where the show is really the romance is the core of the story more than the war and the power struggle. It's a romance story.
And I think maybe what helps when you talk about that in modern audiences, although I will say with the success of the show, maybe that should be a signal to people, like audiences are open to this sort of thing, but it is a period piece and it is in another culture, at least from us, from the typical FX Hulu, maybe not even typical, but Western audiences. And so maybe we're more, if it was modern and set in America, maybe we'd be like, people wouldn't be responding to as much, but that allows us to be more open to these types of stories we used to tell. And I think it's really effective.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true.
Yeah. Love it. Great show. Everybody should watch it. FX Hulu.
Everyone.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's
I'm like so
good.
annoying at this point to people. Like I'm not saying that I feel as strongly about the show as I did about Severance, because that show just like kicked the crap out. I loved that show, but I feel like I felt with Severance, where afterwards I'm like, did you see? Are you guys watching? Are you watching? Did you watch it? Did you watch it? It's definitely the best show of the year so far. So if you didn't watch it, you're missing out on the best show of the year. Like, I just can't stop telling my friends, my family, and I had Grammy and Papa watch it. And they sat and they binged. This is after episode 5 came out, and they binged all 5 in one sitting. They were
wild.
so into it. They were like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And I was like, "Yeah, see, this show's for everybody. This is for the people."
Speaking of Severance, when are we getting Severance season 2? 2026? When's that?
I think it was delayed again or something.
No, it was. It was filmed. Like they took photos from the set. Like I believe production is wrapped. But I don't know.
Lon,
but I don't know when it's coming back.
I think that they didn't wrap production yet. Didn't they take that?
They
took that first pause at the strike. Then they came back.
No, they came back post strike. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then didn't they take a second pause? We got to find this out.
Yeah, I don't know.
We got to get a research team on it.
There was the showrunner issues, and then
they're saying it's still in production.
Yeah.
They haven't wrapped, and there were complications, but it's not. They haven't like stopped, and it's not on hiatus.
But it's not finished. They haven't finished shooting.
Listen, that's what they get for having Sam Levinson write their scripts, and now they're like for season 2. They're
they have scripts. It's not like he like literally he can't decide what Rue should be doing now. Like,
yes,
it's kind of the whole show. It's like you don't know what the main character is doing now. You've had years to figure this out.
Well, listen. Streaming.
I was just saying, I tweeted about this yesterday. Yeah. Imagine that level of pressure where it's like, not only is the whole world like, when is Euphoria season 3? It's been years. When is it coming out? Not only are your bosses at HBO sending you emails like, hey man, what's up with those Euphoria scripts you done yet? But now like Zendaya and Jacob Elordi are telling the newspaper, like, we're waiting around. I got movies to make. When are these season 3s? You're like, I can't imagine that level of stress. And everybody's like, and it better be good this time. It was not good last time. Make those scripts good, Sam. Like, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
What is the last time that we had a show that had a breakout cast the way that this has with Zendaya, with Sydney Sweeney, with Jacob Elordi? I mean, like, we're seeing
Coleman Domingo, Storm Reed. It's like the list goes on and on.
Right.
Angus Cloud would be there if he hadn't passed away tragically.
Of course. Like, when was the last time we had a show that did that? I can't remember the last time we had a show where then after that, they're all movie stars now.
Yeah. I mean, Girls had a few breakouts, like Adam Driver, obviously, and Zosie Mamet's in a ton of stuff now. But like, where everybody, like, where the entire cast, that it's hard. It's tough to come up with one. Like, I couldn't really say. Like,
Leonard says Stranger Things. Yeah, definitely Stranger Things had some breakout.
Again, that's more like pockets. Like, some of them have broken out, but
some of them were already huge stars in Stranger Things.
Yeah, like Millie Bobby Brown, Finn Wolfhard, what's his face?
But like David Harbour and Winona Ryder, we're not crediting Stranger Things for them being stars, you know?
I mean, David Harbour was in a lot of stuff, but it definitely brought him to the next level. Like,
he probably wouldn't have been in Black Widow. He probably wouldn't have been Black Widow without Stranger Things.
People are going back and being like, oh, he was that guy in Suicide Squad. Like,
right. But as opposed to Euphoria, this was like the intro. It's just, he's saying Game of Thrones. I feel like Euphoria did it. This is like the it show. If you're looking to cast somebody in that age range, it's Euphoria.
Yeah.
But like Game of Thrones, a lot of them never went on to like another huge, massive. Like, they pop up and stuff, but like, what's Sophie Turner doing now? That's, you know, like, a lot of them never got their next massive thing.
Yeah, and it might just be, to your point, Roxy, it might just be the window that Euphoria occupies, where it is younger but not too, like the Stranger Things one is like, these are child stars, so you know, who knows how that, as they grow older, how that all works out. These are old enough, you know what I mean, but they're young enough to be like, you know, hot young celebrities, but whatever. It's
also seasons and then huge gaps between them that allow those people to jump around and do movies. Like, if Coleman Domingo's schedule wasn't so open, allowing him to make 2 or 3 movies a year, you know, we wouldn't have Rustin and Color Purple and Zola and like all, you know, he's popped up a bunch in the last few years.
Yeah.
Even if you don't watch Euphoria, you've had a chance to figure out who that guy is.
I didn't even know he was in Euphoria, but I know who Coleman Domingo
wow.
is. So to your point, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all stars
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
I don't know that we should do another season of Euphoria. Hot take, I know, but
Hot take from you. Hot take. I did not expect that
I mean,
from you. From somebody that
if they
doesn't watch
don't-
Euphoria and just keeps up with what all the behind the scenes stuff. I'm like, yeah, maybe Euphoria is not a good show to do.
I love the show, but it's just like we are aging our characters out. It is going to be weird. Every year that we wait, you have to write a different story. Like it's
well, that's what the article
so
said. It's
long.
already a 5-year time jump, and so
Right.
now he's figuring out what's everybody doing after they're no longer in high school. Obviously,
Yeah.
Today is 27. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
can't play high school anymore.
I mean, if this were the early 2000s, she could. If this were early 2000s,
Yeah, I mean, if it was 90210, they could still go
then of
for it.
course.
Remember that one guy, Teddy was the character's name, and I remember he was playing 16, and I remember at the time being like, "That's a 34-year-old man."
Yeah, it's an old man.
It's an old.
That is-
Coleman Domingo was playing a high schooler. In Euphoria, he's one of the high school students.
He's a teacher. So.
Don't lie to him, Lon. He was a high schooler.
He was a high schooler. So let's talk a little bit. We're talking about the shows we're watching, but let's talk a little bit about streaming because this has been on my mind recently. And I told you guys before we got on the air, one of the reasons that made me want to do this episode is I know Roxy's an expert gamer, but for those that aren't, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is the new DC game from Rocksteady, who's the same company that did the Batman Arkham games. And it was getting a lot of heat because it's a live service game, which basically means you buy the base game and then theoretically there should be continuous updates with like new characters and like maps to play on and stuff like that. The recent Avengers game did something similar. And that's all I'm going to say about that because I don't like live service games. I don't play them. That's not how I like to get the game and have it be the game. But as seeing a lot of the discourse around it made me think about streaming and the nature of streaming, how you're invested in this service, and it made me. I was wondering what is compelling because a lot of the discussion around the Suicide Squad game is how game development studios are still doing this. Even though it's not making them money, it's not being well received. Like it's just the hot new thing, and it reminded me a lot about the streaming gold rush, and maybe how that's either been influenced by our culture or impacted our culture to the point where like my finance app that I use is now it used to be something I just bought and now is a subscription service. And when I log on to Photoshop, hopefully there wasn't an update and everything's been moved around and now I don't know where things are because we keep tinkering with it. And again, it's a service. All these things are a service. And I wanted to know your all's thoughts on that. Lon, you're a guest. We'll start with you, but like just kind of the nature of what are your thoughts on the nature of streaming and how it's impacted not just entertainment, but kind of like seemingly every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, in the tech industry, they call that SaaS, SaaS, software as a service. And like they discovered, the programmers and the software companies discovered just selling you the program once, you make money, but then that's it. Then that relationship is over and they have to come up with the next awesome program or thing to sell you. Whereas if they make it an ongoing thing that you need to pay every month and they have bells and whistles and introduce new features and then they've got you on the hook forever and you're a repeat customer. And even if they charge a lot less per month, over time, they'll make a lot more off of you. Horrible thing for consumers when the tech industry discovered this, but it made a lot of money for the Microsofts and the AOLs of the world.
Yeah.
So we're sort of stuck with it. So that it would be inaccurate to say that's streaming's fault. Like that existed before streaming. The problem is streaming came along and introduced this beyond just computer software for like all media.
Yeah.
And now it's just become accepted. Like there's an entire younger generation that doesn't even remember a time before that. So the idea of like physical media gone, abandoned, and now we're permanently in this world where we never own anything. We're always like renting the things we like, and companies can then take it back at any time and sell it again to us in a different format. Like the one thing that I think is super galling is all those people who discovered if you bought movies on Sony's PlayStation platform or Amazon or whatever, Apple TV, like, they could just decide if they lose the license to that content, they could just delete the movie and you paid $20 to buy it, but you don't really own it. It's just sitting on their server. And if they decide to stop serving it to you, it's just gone. And I feel like there was a time when consumers wouldn't have accepted that, because the idea was like, if I buy the movie on DVD, it's mine. I own it. You can't take it back from me.
Yeah.
But they managed to sort of win us over and get people to go with the opposite. And obviously it's more lucrative, but we kind of just lose on that equation.
Yeah. Roxy, what are your thoughts on, to that point, the idea of physical media versus digital media? Because I have mixed feelings in the sense of, like, I do like my physical media. I just an Australian company, Umbrella, I think it's Umbrella Media, just released a Blu-ray remaster of the Super Mario Brothers, the original '93 Super Mario Brothers, which I could not, when the Universal one came out, I could not for the life of me find. It wasn't streaming anywhere. All I could get is an old DVD that was in the old TV format. So when I saw that they remastered Blu-ray, I'm getting it because I don't know when I'll be able to get it again. On the other hand, our oceans are filled with our trash. So, Roxy, do you have any strong feelings about this thing Lon's talking about, physical media versus streaming and stuff like that?
It's not just our oceans are filled with trash, which is a big problem. But I will say, to play devil's advocate a little bit, apartments here are small. Mm-hmm. I have no space. I was cleaning out my cabinets this week, and I have 20 DVDs total. Yeah. And I keep them in the boxes, and that takes up like 2 shelf spaces of mine. And I don't have 2 shelf spaces. Yeah. So it's like, I will say, for storage purposes and convenience factor too, as somebody who is always on the go, I'm oftentimes watching things on my computer or my phone. And it is really nice to be able to access those things just anywhere. Like if I'm back in Boston, or if I'm here, or if I get to Starbucks an hour early and I want to watch something like A Love is Blind, or, one of the things that I don't need a big screen for. And I do love being able to have the convenience factor of it. But the thing that I think sucks the most right now, we're in a time of unbelievable television, but you have to have all of the services to experience that. And that sucks. Like, all the time I put out these videos saying, here are the 10 best shows of the month, of the year, of the whatever, 5 best shows. And half the comments are, I can't watch half of these because I don't have half of these services. And I get that. It's crazy. Like, this month, I believe I paid, I am now paying, I think, $30 for Netflix. I have me and my sister, and you have to have that add-on, right? Yeah. So I pay $30 a month for Netflix. That's so much money for one service. That's just a crazy amount. And I have Hulu, Netflix, Peacock, Paramount, Apple, Amazon. Am I missing some of them? Probably. Like
MGM Plus.
I have AMC Plus, and with Shudder is in there, and then Criterion Channel, which I think may be the overall best one in terms of the most good quality stuff to stream.
Yeah. I don't have MGM Plus, which is preventing me from watching From, which apparently is one of the best shows of this time, and I've never seen it. I don't have AMC Plus, and I am a diehard Walking Dead fan, and I've been really trying to watch this Andrew Lincoln show.
Yeah, it's good. I've been enjoying it. That's why they did Monsieur Spade earlier this year, which was amazing. They've got that one with Giancarlo Esposito coming up. Parish?
Interview with a Vampire, at least season 1 was quite good.
Yeah. Did you see they have that other one, that other Anne Rice adaptation?
Yeah, Witches. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't watch it. I heard not great things, and I had to cut an app. And I heard not good things. Wow. So I'm like, AMC, you're getting the cut.
It is rare for an AMC show to come out, and I'm like,
Not this
Really?
one.
This one made it through? How did this one get through the process?
But there's more and more people I know who are treating these streaming services like sports, where they will cancel them. Like they have it for a season and then
Yeah.
they cancel it and they bring
Yeah.
it back and then they cancel it. And it's like this model does not seem sustainable to me right now. I'm paying more than I ever paid for cable because I have things on all networks that I like to watch.
Yeah.
And okay, I'll also say this. I only deal with what is. I don't like to live in la la land. I don't think that I have an inherent right to sharing passwords. You know, when people are like, it is ridiculous that now on Netflix you cannot share passwords, and you can, if you're at a different home, you cannot just use the free one that you were using of your friends. I disagree with that. I think that it is a company's prerogative to try to make money, and it is their prerogative to say, hey guys, if you want to watch, you have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I prefer that? No, but I'm not going to sit here like an entitled brat and say I'm 32 years old. I was using my father's Netflix password for the last 10 years. And that is the way it has to stay forever. Like, okay, you guys changed and like, that is what it is. But it is the thing that's making me not get certain apps.
Yeah.
That when you can't password share. So
I mean, we've seen this throughout the history of the internet, that like the model is always get people used to the stuff by basically giving it away.
Yep.
right.
And then ratchet up and make it more expensive once they're addicted to it.
Mhm.
And
if that sounds how like drug dealers
get-
operate, good, interesting
well,
point.
I get why that's the strategy, but at the same time, I feel like it consistently backfires, because what happens is they get people used to stuff being free.
Yeah.
And then when you start charging for it, people get offended. Like, what are you talking about? This is free.
Yeah.
You're charging me for a thing that's supposed to be free. And like, I think that's what happened in streaming, that for so long, it was just the Wild West, and you could share your password with 100 people, and everybody got used to that. And so now that they're trying to change the rules, I agree with what Roxy's saying 100%. It's very reasonable. A company could say, hey, you can't buy one of our product and then give it away to 100 friends for free. That's not fair.
Yeah.
But they trained their audience to do that. And so once you do that and then you change the rules, I think it's the same thing that happened with music streaming. Napster came along and was like, guess what? Every song in the universe, you should be able to listen to that for free. And we were all like, you're absolutely right. That makes total sense. I was thinking the same thing. Why isn't all music free forever?
Yeah.
And they got us all used to it. And then when companies were like, actually, it's $10 for an album, we're like, how dare you? Music is free. It's my right as an American. Napster said so. And so I think we keep running into this same issue over and over again of like, the only reason people expect it for free is because we gave it to them for free for a while and they got trained. I think to me, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just to that point, we got a question on the Discord from Leonard Kim. Do you think that the studios / companies will eventually price themselves out from the average viewer with their constant price increases?
With more
No, I don't think so, because I think ads is the answer. Like before, they were like, we can't possibly earn enough money on these platforms to pay for the content that we're making. You know, like the Lord of the Rings problem. Like, no matter how many Prime memberships we sign up for, this show is still too expensive.
Yeah, but I would just argue maybe then the show's just too expensive.
I agree.
Yeah.
But they figured like the solution is, we could just show people ads and that they won't quit. You know, like even if we show them ads, they won't give up watching the show. They'll just watch the ads. And so now I think that'll keep them from having to constantly increase the subscription price. They still will over time.
Yeah.
But I think they're not going to have to be as aggressive because it's going to be offset now by commercials.
I want to put a pin in the ads thing because I do have some thoughts on the ads thing. But Roxy, what were you saying?
No, I think that he's right. I think Lon's right about the ads thing, but I don't necessarily agree that they're not going to price themselves out, because a lot of them already have priced themselves out, right? Like when things were, I mean, I remember when I had Apple at first, I had a year for free.
Mm-hmm.
And then I fell in love with Apple. so that's what I pay for. But there's no world in which right now I'm signing up for MGM Plus
Yeah.
or I'm signing up for AMC Plus. There's no world in which I can do it because I am maxed out. But if they said this is $2.99, then I would.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the, if you look, the most popular services are also the costliest. It's like people would, I don't think price is what's keeping people from Peacock. I think people are like, I already have Netflix, I already have Prime, I don't need Peacock. And I think it's the same with like apps on your phone. Years ago, I worked for a company that we were making like a news app, and every review we would get would be 4 or 5 stars. People loved the app, but it was impossible to get people to download it. And whenever we do market research, the results were always the same. Like, I like this, but I already have enough apps on my phone. I don't need any more apps on my phone. Like, people just have a mental barrier where they're like, that's enough apps. I'm not downloading anything else. My phone is perfect. And I think it's the same with streaming services. I think people have a number in their head of like, that's it. Like, obviously not Roxy and I, but most people have a number in their head of like, that's it. I have Max, I have Amazon, I have Apple. I'm done. I don't need any more. And I think you could keep bringing the prices down, but I think Paramount Plus is just a bridge too far for most people. They're offended by the idea that they should have to sign up for another service. And no matter how many times I tell them Mayor of Kingstown is pretty good, they don't. It's not that good where they like, it would have to be a Game of Thrones Succession level crossover hit to convince
they need a killer app. I can't be like, hey, the Fall of Reach episode on Halo was pretty badass. You guys checking that out?
I haven't looked into it yet, but Lon, I'm guessing that you have. What's the deal? What's going on with the Disney Plus Hulu merger of the apps?
Oh, they were already doing it for a while. Like, if you loaded up Disney Plus, a lot of people were already getting that Hulu hub.
Yeah.
Just this week, they've like officially, it's no longer in beta. So Hulu's going to remain a standalone app. They're not planning to get rid of Hulu as its own experience. But at this point on, if you subscribe to both, you can get all your Hulu content through Disney Plus. Like, you don't need to go to Hulu anymore.
But price point, it doesn't actually make anything cheaper for anybody.
No, they've been bundling Disney Plus and Hulu together for a while. So they're still doing that, but no, they didn't change the pricing structure on that at all. They're just, now they've fully integrated Hulu content into Disney Plus, so you don't have to go to 2 different.
They were sneaky about it though, because there was a while I was paying for Disney Plus and Hulu, and then I realized like, wait, there's a bundle thing that's way cheaper. Why are you still letting me pay for both?
Yeah, they will not tell you, hey, doofus, you signed up for them independently, you could be bundling them. Yeah. But just so everybody listening or watching this, you can
if you have both, do yourself a favor and bundle them and save yourself some money. I don't want them to get, I hear what you're all saying with the amount of apps and everything. I don't want them, I like that Hulu feels different and also has all my FX shows, which makes it one of my go-to apps.
Here's my other thing is I don't think they're not doing it in a smart way. And by smart, I mean like data engineered way.
Yeah.
Like, they're not taking my Hulu data and pulling that into Disney Plus. So Disney Plus does not know I've already watched this many episodes of Shogun or I'm this far into this show. It's just like starting fresh with a brand new Hulu account, which like
boo,
because now it won't know when a new season of a thing I already watched comes up, or it won't know what episode of Judge Steve Harvey did I leave off on. Like, I have to port that information over myself. It's not ideal.
I hate this when I had to get off of the previous Netflix and start being a big girl sack up and pay for my Netflix. It didn't know me at all.
Yeah.
It's like, right. It's like I'm a stranger.
I was recommending things to me and I was like, I watched that 5 years ago.
It bothers me emotionally more than it should. Like, I feel like my Hulu should know me better than this, but it's like Fargo season 4. You idiot!
You idiot!
So I want to go back to the ads thing real quick because recently on Prime, I was watching Reacher, and it's like you're ads right.
Gotta watch Reacher.
Gotta watch Reacher. I don't know that you gotta. It's a very. I don't know that I like Reacher. It is very watchable. It is incredibly watchable.
I don't just like Reacher. I love
but it's one of those. That's when I started noticing the like, you're gonna enjoy this show with ads, and I'm like, you son of a bitch! I already paid for this app, and I think that's my bridge. And I think what I'm hearing from you guys that it makes me, and this is why I'm bringing it up because maybe I need to reevaluate my feelings. When you guys talking about, whatever, I think Prime is my go-to because again, Jeff Bezos could pay for Prime out of his pocket change. But my feeling is if I'm paying for an app, I shouldn't get ads. That's if I'm already paying for the service, don't give me ads. Give me ads. The fast services, if I'm not paying for it, add me up. But maybe even if there's a lower tier, lower tier ads. But if I'm paying for the decent tier, no ads, especially I'm looking at you, Prime, especially you, Prime. I'm already paying a good chunk of change once a year. Get the ads the fuck out of here.
Prime, I think, is particularly galling because it was introduced as a bonus. It was like, look, you're paying Prime, you're paying for the shipping deal.
Yeah.
And as an add-on, little treat for you because you're our best customers.
Yeah.
Here's some free TV shows that we made. Like that was the original promise of Amazon Prime Video.
Yeah.
And they've clearly backed completely away. It's no longer an inducement to sign up for shipping. It's like its own business, and we're going to start making extra money on it by showing ads to you. I pay the extra $2 or $3 a month to not have ads because
I don't want Amazon to have any
I don't
more
want
my
my
money
experience interrupted by ads. I need to watch it. I need to watch it the way the filmmakers intended. But yeah, I find that it's like this is supposed to be a little bonus treat for me, not a thing I have to watch ads during. I'm sorry, Rex. Go ahead.
Is there any other app that is like Amazon Prime where it was the secondary thing?
I guess maybe
I think Apple.
Yeah.
TV Plus was kind of also introduced as like, hey, buy a new iPhone and we'll give you 6 months of TV Plus.
But you don't get anything else from having it. Like from having Amazon paying that whatever it is, $170 a year or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
I get free shipping and I get this thing. Is there any other service where it's not you get something else other than content?
Netflix, you get those games, like you can play all those Netflix mobile games with your Netflix subscription.
But that's the secondary thing there. And this brings me to another thing. We do need to wrap up, but this does bring me another thing I wanted to bring up is the idea of breaking things up. And of course, that's more obvious with it because at that point, it's like, well, then have me pay for Prime separately. Have Prime be a separate thing. Independent
you can now get Prime Video without the shipping.
Really?
That is true. You can. It is available now as a standalone.
But I did want to hear your guys' thoughts on. I was talking with Sal, who I do Spider-Versity Mutant Academy with, and we were talking about because during the pandemic, it used to be all comics were shipped through Diamond Distribution, which was a problem because it was a monopoly basically. And Marvel and DC and now a bunch of other publishers have started shipping through different distribution platforms, which had its own problems. But we had a discussion about, because I think it was Marvel at one point tried to handle their own distribution and it was bad. And it made me wonder if maybe the production, the making of the thing should be different than the platform distributing it. Maybe Netflix shouldn't be making its own shows. It should just be a distribution platform. And separating those things might be beneficial for the consumer. Not having, because now everything is like Netflix tends to be very based around their algorithm, and I think can be detrimental to the content if it's all under one roof. Is there merit to that? Is there something there? Or you guys feel like no, it's better that production distribution are the same.
I think we're already seeing the evidence that the idea. A decade ago or so, when Netflix was having all of this breakout success and every studio and production company was like, we need to have our own bespoke streaming platform just for the stuff that we make. Huge mistake.
Yeah.
Paramount's sinking in debt. from Paramount Plus, and they can't get enough people to sign up to offset all the money they're losing on their cable networks. Like the idea that we want to draw people away from these cable networks where we sell a ton of advertising and move them over to these subscription streaming platforms where we don't sell a lot of advertising. Like, what are you idiots doing? Like, terrible, terrible decision. So like, yeah, Paramount, NBC Universal, they should be doing what Sony and Lionsgate did. Don't bother making your own platform. Just make a lot of content and sell it to the Netflixes and the Apples and the Amazons of the world. Like, there's really no need for Paramount Plus and Peacock to exist, or especially AMC Plus. Like, come on.
No.
Make your stuff just like you used to and then sell it to the distribution channels. And I mean, to your point, a lot of the big breakout shows on Netflix aren't actually made by Netflix. They're made by Universal Television or Sony Pictures Television or Lionsgate. And then they're collaborative efforts. And so I think that was obviously the way to go. And like a lot of the industry just like got stars in their eyes and thought, we're going to be the next Netflix, and made this huge dumb mistake of building their own streaming platforms that don't have an audience. But it was clearly the wrong way to go, and like, you know, Sony figured it out. Like they're the smart ones, I think.
What do you think, Lon, in terms of Peacock, Paramount Plus? Do you think they're going to fold?
Fold, probably not. Get swallowed up by someone bigger, probably. I mean, I feel like Paramount, we already know, like it's for sale. So we'll see who buys it, and if it gets divided up. Like, it's starting to look like one company might buy like the film and TV studio, and then another company might buy like CBS and the cable networks. Like, that might get divvied up, and we'll see what happens to Paramount Plus from there. But yeah, I feel like it'll be less this goes away entirely, and it'll be more like NBC Universal and Netflix made a deal, and all the stuff that was on Peacock goes to Netflix. You know, it'll be like that kind of a thing, or some kind of bundle package, like how Discovery Plus still exists, but it got eaten by Max. You know, like it'll be more like that, where we'll have fewer big platforms, and it'll just have the libraries of 2 or 3 of these services. Like AMC too, like I don't think they're ever going to have, they have all these niche streamers like Acorn TV and, you know, Shudder and AMC Plus and Sundance Now. And I don't think even with all those spread out, they're going to get enough subscribers to stay afloat. It'll probably be like all of those will become hubs within Prime Video.
And it feels like they're already experimenting with that, because I know season 1 of Interview with a Vampire, I want to say Dark Winds, went over to Max as kind of like they dipping their toe in. Like, what is this? They called
it a pop-up for like 2 or 3 months. They licensed like the top 10 AMC Plus shows over to Max. And I mean, that was mutually beneficial. Max gets all this new content, and AMC gets, you know, if you like Dark Skies season 1, maybe Dark Winds season 1, maybe you'd move over to AMC Plus to watch season 2. It's great. More people should watch it.
It's a good show. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's just going to be permanent. Like, there's obviously not enough people for all of these different services, but I don't think they're going to necessarily like vanish from the world. It'll just, that library gets added to somewhere else.
So to that end, Roxy, just last question from the Discord: which streaming service do you think will emerge victorious? Who wins the streaming wars?
Like, I don't think it's going to be one is the victor and the rest, but I think it's exactly who we're talking about. It's Netflix, it's Apple. I mean, Apple has more money than God, so they just can outplay, outlast. It's Amazon and it's Max. I guess I would say probably those 4. I'm wondering if I'm forgetting anything. Although Max has been very confusing recently. So
Max.
And Disney, I guess Disney Plus as well.
Max.
I mean, Max is also. We'll see if Zaslav sells off Warner Brothers Discovery.
Max seems seemed like a sure thing, and then a lot of the decisions they're making is like, well, I guess maybe not.
I just don't see. I guess I just don't see HBO going away, but I don't know in what capacity they'll stay, because the Max thing has been a kind of nightmare. But that brand HBO, just calling it Max was the dumbest decision I've ever heard in my entire life. But
what about you, Lon? Who do you think will be, once the dust is cleared, who do you think might remain?
I mean, I used to be pretty skeptical on this, but I've been proved wrong. Like for me, it seems clear that Netflix has such a strong first movers advantage.
Yeah.
The brand, like Netflix being the streaming service that everyone has, the biggest, the most prominent, the most watched. It doesn't seem like anyone else has any chance to unseat them. And week to week, if you look at Nielsen, it's a rarity still for a Netflix show to not be like the number 1, 2, 3. Like Bluey on Disney Plus is the only show that's not on Netflix that routinely breaks through into the top 2 or 3.
I haven't
Everything else
mentioned
is Netflix.
I haven't mentioned that on this show. Bluey is like must-watch television. Bluey is, oh my God. If you, because obviously I'm Auntie Roxy to like all of my friends' kids.
Yeah.
It's the only one. I love Bluey. Bluey should be in the top. Bluey is the jam. Bluey is the bee's knees.
I might be watching Bluey soon enough. Listen,
Bluey's so good, DJ.
And it's wild too, because I hardly watch anything on Netflix. Like for me, Netflix is not one of my go-tos. Like my wife watches Netflix. I don't. It's rare that.
But
like
you have it, DJ.
Because honestly, if there weren't shows on it that she watched, I wouldn't. But
I mean, like the most recent one, the Nielsen list is for mid-February that just hit today.
Yeah.
Number 1, Love is Blind season 6.
Yeah.
Number
So
2,
good.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. Number 3,
Yeah.
Bluey.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's more licensed shows on Netflix. Brooklyn Nine-Nine went up recently on Netflix, so that's on there. Young Sheldon is on Netflix now, so that's on there. Grey's Anatomy on Netflix, that's on there. Suits still in the top 10 on Netflix.
Well, and that just tells you it's just because people have it. Young Sheldon, I always see Young Sheldon shit when I'm on Max, and so it's like it's just people don't know that's on. You could have just watched that on Max. Like
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's not that consumers aren't en masse. The
Yeah.
majority. Like when I'm talking about huge trends and averages. People aren't. Oh, what do I want to watch this week? Which streaming service is it on? Peacock? Should I get Peacock?
Yeah.
That's not how
Nope.
people are doing it.
Nope.
They're loading up Netflix because it's the one they have, and they're like, "What do I want to watch today on Netflix?"
I do
And
it all
if
the
it's not on
time.
Netflix. They're not. It's not in their radar, and so like all these great shows we talk about that are on all these other platforms, they're just not getting seen. And it's not because people aren't interested in them. They literally have been trained to load up Netflix or load up maybe Prime or usually Netflix,
Yeah.
and just go, what's on? And you know, like I guess Apple has loyalists. So
Yeah.
there's always like one Apple show that everybody with Apple TV who goes to Apple TV first, what are they watching? You know,
No.
Home Royale, Manhunt, like it's always one at a time, you know?
Yeah.
Manhunt's
And so
pretty
I think-
good.
Well,
Manhunt's really good. I've been
Yeah,
enjoying it a lot.
It
Yeah.
sounds like we're barreling towards one of those dystopian futures where certain companies do all the things and you've got 3 options and they do all the things like Amazon. But before we get there, Lon, remind the kids at home, where can they find what you're working on?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter/X, whichever you prefer calling it. I still call it Twitter.
Yeah.
At LONS is me over there. Definitely watch Honest Trailers, new one every Tuesday on YouTube. And I also write a column for a little site called Passion Fruit. So that's for creators. We talk about issues facing online creators, digital media, all that kind of stuff. So check that out as well.
Roxy, where can people find what you're working on?
Everywhere at Roxy Stryer.
You can find me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow this show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers, but on Twitter/X.
Make out the vowels from stupid.
And we will see you all next time.